The communication with the client stays in-house. Communication with the third-party vendors is virtual.
So we're here chatting about mortgage and virtual assistant. And I'm curious, like, how's your experience been? Anything we can do to serve you? How are you using our people? Like all of the good stuff, you know?
It's been good, right? We put a lot of time into it. I think we had a pretty good expectation of like, hey, this is ground. Yeah, they're virtual assistants, but they're not going to know anything, right? So we got to take them from like basically like, here's where we live. I took like a map, right? I was like, so I was like, where do you guys live? And I was like, here's where we live, right? And then I was like, hey, this part of California is broken up into these counties, right? These sections, and that's kind of where we started, and then and just kind of walk them through and put together kind of a program of like, all right, how do we keep these people up to speed to just know like terminology and the process itself, right? Before you can do anything to help us, like you got to know kind of what's going on. So that was a big part of that. We started like, and even for the first probably like couple months, it was during the pandemic. So it was probably a good thing that like I was at home, and so nobody was really bugging me. So I got to spend a couple hours every day walking them through. We did like payment scenarios. This is, how loans work, and then that builds on itself. So this is how the mortgage itself works, and this is the interest rate, and all these different, property taxes, homeowners. So they got this kind of good sense of how it works. And then we put them into like data entry things into our loan operating system. And then we started having them order third-party items, title and escrow, So we slowly built them up, and they've been great. I think we're like 6 for 7 or something like that of people that we've kept, or 5 for 6 or something like that. We've only had to let go one person, so who couldn't get up to speed. So they've been doing great.
Before you go, and I hate to interrupt, but I have to ask, why did you choose to spend all of that time like walking somebody through what a mortgage is, how to use your systems? I mean, a map, it sounds simple to you and me because we've been in the world, we understand, but another LO or another mortgage company could come in and be like, what do you mean I got to train them? Like, what would you say to them?
So one, you got to expect that they don't know anything, right? Just like anybody else that you hire off the street, right? It's like they don't know anything. And so you can create a checklist, and some people are pretty good at this, of like, and ultimately we can do better at this too, is like you put them in the system and the system doesn't allow them to fail. Like they can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can't go 1 to 3. It won't let them. Right. Well, our systems weren't set up that way, or not. They weren't, haven't been evolved enough. Right. We're like 2 years old, right? Year and a half. The company's pretty young. So, we just had to do it that way for that reason, right? Because there were no safeguards. So you had to teach them properly. And the second part is if somebody knows why they're doing something and why it's important for the next person down the road who grabs the file or the potential dangers, then they're going to typically be better at doing that type of stuff, right? Well, you can't know that stuff, right? You can't be like, well, this is important because the underwriter needs to see it. They're like, what's an underwriter? They're like, what, how does that work? And so then you got to go like, well, the underwriter is a person who approves the loan. And they're like, well, what, when do they get, it's like, yeah, there's actually like a person there that actually says, yes, here's $500,000, right? It's a very important job, so you kind of, that's why. And then my theory had always been like, it's always a pain in the butt. It's way harder to do it that way, but it's been starting to bear fruit now, is like, you're gonna reap those rewards long term, and that if you explain the why, they'll just get better.
It's cool that you guys have grown so rapidly. You started with 2 in early 2020, and now you're at 6. What made you decide to grow the team, and what about MyOutDesk and the virtual assistants made you take that leap?
Yeah, we did. And I guess kind of like a good thing is like we've had no issues with the MyOutDesk by itself as a company, right? So like time, pay, anything I've asked of them to get, like we got monitors and new computers stuff. Like no problem. I've had zero problems. Like one of those good things where like I don't have anything to say on that front, because there's been no issues for me with the company itself, right? You know, obviously the employees or the contractors, whatever you want to call them, like that's just growing pain type stuff. But like as far as whatever we've needed from the company, we've been able to get and also get to our people, which has been fantastic. So I think Christian's our rep. He does really, he's great. So yeah, on that front, and then that's probably the number one reason. It was just like, hey, I want to hire 2 more people. Cool. And like they handle all that. They're like, Wednesday at 5. I was like, perfect. The less I have to think about it, you just let me know where to go. I'll ask the questions. Good. Ask for disc profiles on everybody. They get them to me like within less than 24 hours. So it's been, all that stuff's been excellent. The expansion was is basically because it worked. Like, you know, it was we've probably been a little lucky too, because I know we've hired people too. And like we've had good people come to us, right? And so we keep them. You know, we took advantage of that and kept them. And then so yeah, we're growing, and it's been a good experience overall. So we're like, all right, we'll just keep hiring people to handle these jobs. And like I said, right now we'll keep doing it as well. Again, kind of my next goal is to take one person that we currently have and put them into like a more almost like junior processor, but like a higher end type of role, right? And we're gonna figure out how we're gonna possibly do that. But yeah.
For people who are considering this, other companies, mortgage companies, loan officers, what part of the process is virtual in your mind now that you've been doing this almost 2 years? And what part stays with the processor, the person who's got 5-10 years experience, knows underwriting, maybe has a license? What part stays virtual? What part stays in-house?
So the communication with the client stays in-house. Communication with the third-party vendors is virtual. So title, escrow, appraisals, verification of employment, talking to that type of stuff, right? So basically anything that doesn't have to do with contacting the borrower. That's kind of like processing, right? In the loan officers.
What do you think you've saved having a blended model where you have an in-house processor supported by a couple of virtual assistants? Like what do you think has dropped to your bottom line because of that model?
So it's probably at least, I mean, for those like 6 people, it's probably half, at least 50% savings, right? Minimum, right? Because if you're looking, because I think they make, I have to look, I don't even know. We do give them a bunch of overtime too, which is that I'm sure they love, but that's kind of a benefit, right? Like I don't monitor them at all. Like it's they are crushing it, so it's okay. But initially, I think they were making like $1,700 a month, right? So you're talking about minimum 50, if not $4,000 is what 36, or $4,000 is what 48, and so what is that? 50 to 60% savings just bought like right off the top savings wise.
And all that money drops to your bottom line. The difference in the cost is just profit for you.
That doesn't include, like, if you look at it from like turnover aspect, right? Time. Like I'm part of it's luck, right? But we got 6 of 7. We hired 7 people, we still have 6. And we hired 4 and kept 2 people in house. So technically, by percentage wise, that's crushing it. So, obviously the data is probably not there to make an absolute conclusion, but you can look at that as well. And again, not to get too much into that, but like they're awesome. Like they're super grateful for work, and they I was like, you guys are crushing it. You guys are earning it. You don't have to thank me for anything, right? Like you guys are great. There is a part of that too that's like some attitude issues, right? Just with the culture, I guess. They're super thankful, they're awesome, and whereas like sometimes you'll hire people, and anybody is just like with them. And again, we've had a really good experience, so can't complain too much. But like anybody can fool you for 30 minutes on an interview or an hour in an interview, and then you get them in here, and it's like, whoa, what happened to that person that I met a week ago?
Totally.
Right? So
totally.
we haven't had to deal with any of that, and which is great.